I wish the best for your son, and I wish you good health, and your case is dismissed.
College didn't slow him down. He cleaned cars, worked overnight at the Providence Journal, and paid for tuition himself. Graduated in 1958 with a Bachelor of Science. His dad cried that day. Antonio, the milkman, had watched his son rise higher than he ever could. Teaching followed, but Frank wanted more. Law school. Couldn't quit teaching. So what'd he do? He drove to Boston after school, sat in night classes, drove home, slept a little, and started over again. 7 years. 7. And in 1965, he graduated law school, becoming the first professional in the family. But life didn't slow down. Frank worked as a legal clerk, reading late-night files about people barely scraping by. Petty theft, parking violations, broken families. He didn't see cases, he saw humans. Stories stuck with him. Every decision mattered. Politics called. 1962, 25 years old, Frank stunned everyone, beating a longtime incumbent for a Providence City Council seat. Neighborhood kid, raw energy, speeches full of fire. Street brawls? Yep, happened. Still, he won. Later runs for lieutenant governor and attorney general didn't pan out, but he wasn't done. Even service in the Army Reserve and National Guard shaped his moral compass. Discipline, fairness, resilience, all of it. Wrestling never left him either. State champ in '53, coaching while teaching and attending law school. Wrestling taught him more than strength. It taught grit, fairness, and how to keep moving when life knocks you down. And he carried that into the courtroom. He remembered kneeling on cold sidewalks, shining shoes, listening to people's stories. That boy never left him. 1985, Mayor Joseph Powino Jr. offered him a seat on the Providence Municipal Court. He took it, and things changed. Chief judge around 1990, and suddenly the court wasn't just about fines or rules. People didn't just walk in, scared and ashamed. They were heard. Real people. Homeless moms, overworked nurses, men living in cars. He asked questions to understand. You know that feeling when someone just gets it? That's Frank Caprio, the man who somehow made sitting in a courtroom feel less scary and more human. Millions fell in love with him through his show, Caught in Providence. People laughed, cried, and maybe even held their breath as he looked someone in the eye, nodded, and said, "I understand." But behind the warmth, there was a life full of grit, hustle, and stories that'd break your heart if you really listened. Frank wasn't born into comfort. November 24th, 1936, Providence, Rhode Island. A freezing tenement on Federal Hill, cold water flats, pot-bellied stoves for heat, trips across the street to get a hot shower. Not exactly the stuff of dreams. But what his parents, Antonio and Filomena Caprio, lacked in money, they made up for in love. That cramped little apartment overflowed with it. They didn't count wealth by dollars. They measured it in togetherness. Antonio came from Tiano, Italy. 7th grade education. No money. And somehow, he became a man who'd wake his kids at 4 a.m. to help deliver milk or sell fruit just to keep the family afloat. He said, "If you don't want to do this forever, stay in school." And Frank, he listened. His mother, Filomena, was quietly heroic. She'd skip prenatal care to save a few bucks, never bought herself a dress, yet somehow had a heart so big she'd help anyone who needed it. That spirit stuck with Frank. In 2018, he even named his charitable foundation after her, the Filomena Fund. At 10, Frank was shining shoes. Men who'd lost their jobs, struggling fathers, immigrants who barely spoke English. He polished their shoes and listened. Really listened. Delivered newspapers too, even before sunrise, even in snow. Teenage Frank juggled 3 jobs, washed dishes, wrestled, and somehow still managed school. Discipline wasn't a lesson for him. It was life. Not trap. Every story mattered. Take Tisha Miller in 2020, homeless, living in her car with her daughter, fibromyalgia, making every day hell. Caprio didn't just dismiss the charges. He handed her $50 from the Filomena Fund. That's who he was. That fund wasn't just money. It was hope. Started small. $25 here, $50 there, letters from strangers trusting him to help someone else. Over time, dozens, hundreds of lives touched. And it never stopped. By now, people were calling him the people's judge. Minor fines, parking tickets. It wasn't just bureaucracy. It was real life. And he treated it that way. But it wasn't all applause. Some criticized him for being too lenient, too soft, too human. Yet, behind the scenes, he did more than people knew. Helped addicts rehab, covered fines for struggling veterans, made courts a place where stories mattered more than rules. And somehow, he stayed humble through it all. Caught in Providence began in 1995, a little grainy public access TV experiment with his brother Joseph filming. People thought it would go unnoticed. Then one day, a guy claimed aliens abducted him. No blink, just frankness. Viewers loved it. Slowly, that tiny experiment grew. ABC affiliate picked it up. Viral moments happened. Daniel Murray, single dad, 92 cents in the bank. Fine for buying baby formula? Paid off. Frontline nurses during COVID getting tickets? Gone. That quiet, simple humanity went national. Over 50 million views, and for good reason. Even celebrities couldn't escape his empathy. Repeat offenders, struggling addicts, starving families. They all found a judge who didn't just punish. He listened. He helped. No flass, no fanfare. He just did what he knew was right. And people noticed. By 2023, billions had seen the show. Facebook Watch, TikTok, syndication. He reached the world. But it was never about fame. It was about fairness, kindness, understanding. Frank's family? Everything. Married Joyce in 65, 5 kids, dinner table lessons about life, fairness, empathy. Joyce watched over the household quietly but fiercely, keeping corruption at bay, protecting their kids, giving Frank the space to do what he did best. Wrestling with grandkids, telling courtroom stories. Every moment was a lesson in life, justice, and love. His charitable side was massive too. The Philomena Fund helped mothers, veterans, struggling families. Scholarships, grants, legal aid programs. He didn't just talk about helping. He made it happen. Hundreds of students, thousands of families impacted. Minor fines? Capped at 10% of income thanks to his advocacy. Repeat offenses? Dropped 30% after his hands-on interventions. Compassion in court wasn't a book. It was a map for the kind of justice he believed in. Real, human, empathetic. Then came November 2023. A diagnosis, pancreatic cancer. Frank faced it like everything else, head-on, with dignity, grace, and humor when possible. Chemotherapy, radiation, fatigue, fear, he pushed through. Yet even then, his thoughts were for others. Family, patients, defendants, students. And yes, the world watched, prayed, and supported him. But his spirit? Unbroken. Frank passed in August 2025, 88 years old. Surrounded by Joyce, children, memories of a life lived big, full, and kind. Funeral streamed worldwide. Millions of condolences poured in. Over 1 billion views for Caught in Providence. Lives changed forever. Legacy cemented. The man didn't just interpret the law, he humanized it. Not every case ended in leniency, but 30% did. Not because he was soft, but because he never forgot what it felt like to be human, to struggle, to be seen and heard.